They say that when an Alpha King marks you for death, the moon herself turns away in sorrow. I never believed in such things, not until the night I stood before him in chains, feeling the weight of his gaze like winter itself had crawled beneath my skin. Not until I looked into eyes that burned silver with fury and something else. Something that made my wolf whimper, and my heart betray every instinct that screamed for me to run. My name is Sarah Ashwood, and this is the story of how I became the one thing the most powerful werewolf in existence swore could never exist, his equal. The throne room of the Northern Court was carved from obsidian and moonstone, a cathedral of shadow and light. Torches flickered along walls that had witnessed 1,000 judgments, and the air tasted of pine smoke and something metallic. Fear, perhaps, or blood. I kept my chin lifted as the guards dragged me forward, though my wrists ached where silver chains bit into skin. Silver. The metal that burned werewolves from the inside out. They weren't taking any chances with me. The irony was almost amusing. I was an Omega. The weakest designation our kind could bear, and yet they treated me like I might tear through the throne room and slaughter everyone present. "The Omega Sarah Ashwood," announced the guard, his voice echoing through the vast space. "Charged with murder of an Alpha, conspiracy against the crown, and crimes of treason most foul." Murmurs rippled through the assembled court like wind through dead leaves. An Omega? Killing an Alpha? Impossible. She'll burn for this. The king will make an example. Let them whisper. I had stopped caring what anyone thought the moment I'd watched my sister's body go cold in my arms. Silence. The word cut through the chamber like a blade through silk, and then he appeared. Cale Northrend, Alpha King of the 7 Territories, descended the steps from his throne with the fluid grace of a predator. He was impossibly tall, with shoulders carved from granite, and a presence that filled the room until there was no air left to breathe. His hair was black as a raven's wing, and his face could have been beautiful if not for the cruelty etched into every angular line. But it was his eyes that held me captive. Silver, bright as the full moon, and burning with a rage so pure it was almost divine. He stopped 3 paces away, close enough that I could smell him. Cedar and winter wind and something wild that made my Omega instinct scream. Submit. Run. I did neither. You killed Marcus Blackthorne. His voice was low, controlled, but violence lurked beneath each syllable. An Alpha of my personal guard. My friend since childhood. You tore out his throat like an animal? Yes. The word dropped into silence. Gasps echoed through the hall. Cale's eyes narrowed. Yes, that's all you have to say? Would you prefer I lie? Would it change what comes next if I wept and claimed innocence? We both know how this ends. So yes, I killed him. And I'd do it again. The throne room erupted. But through it all, Cale remained perfectly still, studying me with those merciless silver eyes. He raised one hand. Silence fell like a guillotine. Everyone out. The guards hesitated. Your Majesty, she's dangerous. Out. Now. They obeyed. Within moments, the throne room emptied until only 3 remained. Cale, myself, and the ghost of Marcus Blackthorne between us. Cale circled me slowly, each step deliberate. You're not afraid. I'm terrified. But fear won't save me. Nothing will. So why waste my last moments cowering? He stopped directly behind me. I felt the heat of him at my back, felt his breath stir my hair. Tell me why you killed him. Why do you care? Because you're an Omega. Even with surprise, even with a weapon, you shouldn't have been able to kill an Alpha. Yet his body was found with claw marks, not blade wounds. So I ask again, tell me why. Something in his tone loosened the words I'd kept chained in my chest. He killed my sister, Alara. She was 16, pure, beautiful. He decided he wanted her. And when she refused, when she tried to fight back, I swallowed against the blade in my throat. Omegas have no legal recourse against Alphas. No court would hear her case, so I did what your justice system wouldn't. I gave her peace. Cale's expression remained unreadable. You murdered an Alpha to avenge an Omega. I executed a monster to avenge my sister, and I won't apologize for it. Not to you, not to anyone. For a long moment he simply stared at me. Then slowly, impossibly, the corner of his mouth curved upward. Something darker. More dangerous. How did you do it? An Omega can't overpower an Alpha. It's physically impossible. Apparently not. His eyes flashed. Don't play games with me, little wolf. Your life hangs by a thread, then cut it. I'm not afraid of death, Your Majesty. I've been dying inside since the moment I found Alara's body. You want to know how I killed him? I waited until the full moon. I let my wolf take over completely, gave her every drop of control I possessed. And she was hungry, so very hungry. Something flickered across Kale's face. Recognition, perhaps. The full moon. When the bond between human and wolf is thinnest. When instinct overwhelms reason. You could have died, letting your wolf take full control. Omegas aren't strong enough to handle that kind of transformation. It should have torn you apart from the inside. I wish it had. Would have been cleaner than this. Kale was quiet for so long I thought he might simply walk away. Instead, he did something that made my blood turn to ice. He smiled. A real smile this time, sharp and wild and absolutely terrifying. I'm not going to kill you, Sarah Ashwood. Hope was a poison. I refused to drink it. Then you're more merciful than your reputation suggests. Mercy? No, little wolf. This isn't mercy. This is fascination. Because in 200 years of ruling these territories, I have never met an Omega who could do what you did. Who could survive what you survived? He moved to the throne and settled into it with careless grace. So here's what's going to happen. You will not be executed. Instead, you'll stay here, in the palace, under my personal watch. You'll be given quarters, clothing, food, and in return, you will teach me everything about how you killed an Alpha twice your size and strength. And if I refuse, then I'll have you executed at dawn, but not before I hunt down every surviving member of the Ashwood bloodline and ensure they suffer the same fate. His voice was pleasant, conversational, which made the threat infinitely worse. Do we have an understanding? Rage boiled in my chest. You're a monster. Yes, but I'm a monster who's offering you life. Take it or leave it, Sarah. But choose quickly. What choice did I have? Our younger brother still lived. Our cousins. If I died here, Kale would make good on his promise. I accept. Wise girl. He gestured, and guards appeared from the shadows. Take her to the East Wing, the Rose Room, and remove those chains. She's not a prisoner. As the silver fell away from my wrists, I felt my wolf stir for the first time since entering this cursed palace. One more thing, Kale called, as the guards began to lead me away. I turned back. He was watching me with those predatory eyes. Welcome to the Northern Court, little wolf. Try not to kill anyone else. I'm running short on guards. Part 2. The Rose Room, the East Wing, was less fortress and more fairy tale. Tapestries lined the walls depicting forests and running wolves beneath silver moons. The air smelled of beeswax and roses. The guards left me at a door carved with intricate flowers. I pushed it open. The Rose Room was aptly named. Every surface seemed to bloom with them. Rose wallpaper, rose carvings on the furniture, an actual rose garden visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. The bed was enormous, draped in silk the color of champagne. It was beautiful. It was a cage. I walked to the windows and pressed my palms against the cool glass. 3 stories up, too high to jump, and I could see guards patrolling the gardens below. A knock at the door made me turn. Come in. A young woman entered, carrying an armful of clothes. She had warm brown skin and intelligent eyes. Miss Ashwood, I'm Lyra. I've been assigned as your attendant. I don't need an attendant. Nevertheless, the king has ordered it. She laid the clothes across the bed. I'm to help you settle in, provide whatever you need, and... She hesitated. And report everything I do back to him. Lyra's expression didn't change. His Majesty is thorough in all things. That's one word for it. I'd like to bathe, alone. Of course. The bathing room is through that door. I've prepared hot water and oils. Take your time. When I was finally alone, I shed my ruined dress and sank into water hot enough to sting. I scrubbed until my skin turned pink, trying to wash away the feeling of silver chains and the memory of Marcus Blackthorn's blood on my hands. but some stains went deeper than flesh. Later, I found that Lyra had left a meal. Fresh bread, roasted meat, cheese, fruit. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. Pride urged me to refuse it. Survival made me eat. I dressed in one of the gowns Lyra had left, deep green silk that brought out the gold flecks in my brown eyes. When I caught my reflection in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked like I belonged here, in this beautiful prison. A soft scratching at the door pulled me from my thoughts. I opened it cautiously. A white cat sat in the hallway, regarding me with mismatched eyes, one blue, one green. It meowed once, then sauntered into the room as if it owned the place. Well, hello? I knelt down, extending my hand. The cat sniffed delicately, then butted its head against my palm. Ghost doesn't spy. She judges. I jerked upright. Kyle leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. He'd changed into simpler clothes, black pants, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. It should have made him look less intimidating. It didn't. You could knock, I said. I could. But then you might have pretended to be asleep. He entered without invitation, and Ghost immediately wound around his legs. He scooped her up absently. But then you might have pretended to be asleep. How are you finding your accommodations? Lovely. For a prison. It's not a prison, Sarah. You're free to move about the palace, the grounds. But I can't leave. No, you can't leave. Not yet. I watched him carefully. There was something different about him here. Away from the throne room. The rage had banked to embers. Why are you really here? I asked. He set Ghost down and moved to the window. Because I want to understand. Not just how you killed Marcus, but why you survived it. Most Omegas who attempt what you did, letting their wolf take complete control, die in the process. The transformation is too violent, too complete. Yet you're standing here, whole and defiant. He turned to face me. That shouldn't be possible. Maybe I'm just stubborn. Or maybe you're something more than you appear to be. His gaze was intense, searching. Tell me about your family, your pack. Where did you come from before all this? Why does it matter? Because everything matters when trying to solve an impossibility. He moved closer, and I fought the urge to step back. Humor me, Sarah. We're going to be spending considerable time together. Might as well learn to tolerate each other's company. I considered refusing, but something in his expression, genuine curiosity rather than cruelty, made me relent. We came from the Southern Territories. My father was a beta in the Riverside Pack before he died. My mother followed him 6 months later. Heart gave out, they said, but I think it was grief. I wrapped my arms around myself. That left me to care for Alara and our younger brother, Finn. We managed, barely, until Marcus decided he wanted Alara. And your pack Alpha. He did nothing? Our Alpha is old, weak. He cares more about maintaining peace with the Northern Court than protecting Omegas. Bitterness crept into my voice. When I reported what Marcus did, he told me to be grateful and Alpha had shown interest in our family. Said it would elevate our status. Kale's expression darkened. Who is your Alpha? Garrett Riverside. I know Garrett. Spineless coward. Kale moved to the fireplace, staring into the flames. I should have him removed. Why would you? He serves your interests perfectly, keeps the South docile and compliant. He glanced at me over his shoulder. You have a very low opinion of me. You threatened to murder my entire family if I didn't cooperate. What opinion should I have? To my surprise, he smiled. Not the cruel smile from before, but something softer, almost rueful. Fair point. Though in my defense, I had just learned that one of my oldest friends was dead. Killed by an Omega, everyone said was impossible to kill an Alpha. I may have been reactive. Reactive. That's certainly one way to describe threatening genocide. I wouldn't have done it, you know. He turned fully to face me. Killed your family. I'm many things, Sarah, but I don't punish the innocent for the crimes of others. It was a bluff. An effective one, clearly. And I'm supposed to believe you now? Trust the word of the Alpha King? No, I don't expect your trust. But I would like your honesty. He crossed the room, stopping just within arm's reach. I need to understand what you are, Sarah Ashwood. Because every instinct I possess tells me you're not simply an Omega who got lucky. There's something different about you. something I've never encountered before. His intensity should have frightened me. Instead, I found myself leaning forward, drawn by the same inexplicable pull I'd felt in the throne room. What if there's nothing to understand? What if I'm just an Omega who loved her sister enough to become a monster? Love doesn't grant supernatural strength. It doesn't allow an Omega to survive a full transformation. It doesn't— He stopped abruptly, his eyes widening slightly. Unless what? The mate bond. His voice was barely above a whisper. The stories say that when a wolf finds their true mate, their power increases tenfold. That love and destiny can accomplish what strength alone cannot. My heart stuttered. I didn't have a mate. Alara was unmated. That theory doesn't— Not romantic love, necessarily. The bond between siblings can be just as powerful. More so sometimes. He reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and gently grasped my wrist. His thumb pressed against my pulse point. When you transformed, when you let your wolf take control, what did you think about? Alara, only Alara. And your wolf? What did she want? I closed my eyes, remembering. Vengeance, justice, to protect what was ours. There. His grip tightened slightly. That's it. You weren't just an Omega in that moment. You were a sister, a protector. You channeled a bond deeper than designation, stronger than biology. It's rare, incredibly rare, but it's been documented. I opened my eyes to find him staring at me with something approaching awe. You're a bonded wolf, Sarah. Your power comes not from yourself, but from your connection to those you love. It makes you unpredictable, dangerous in ways that have nothing to do with physical strength. He released my wrist and stepped back. It also makes you incredibly valuable. Unease prickled down my spine. Valuable how? That's what I intend to discover. He moved toward the door, then paused. Get some rest. Tomorrow your real education begins. You'll learn what it means to survive in my court. And perhaps, if you're clever, you'll learn how to thrive. And what do you get out of this arrangement? He looked back at me, and in the firelight his silver eyes gleamed. Perhaps a queen worthy of standing beside a king, or perhaps just a fascinating puzzle to occupy my mind. Time will tell. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with Ghost and 1,000 questions I didn't dare answer. Part 3. Lessons in Power. The next morning, I woke to find Lyra already in the room, laying out clothes that looked far more practical than the silk gown from the night before. Fitted leather pants, a simple tunic, boots that looked made for movement rather than decoration. Good morning, Miss Ashwood. The king requests your presence in the training yards within the hour. I sat up, rubbing sleep from my eyes. Training yards? His Majesty believes you should learn to defend yourself properly. If you're to survive in this court, you'll need more than luck and desperation. Lyra's expression was carefully neutral, but I caught a hint of approval in her eyes. Breakfast is on the table. I suggest you eat well. Training with the king is rigorous. She wasn't wrong. An hour later, I stood in a massive courtyard surrounded by high stone walls. The space was filled with training equipment, wooden dummies, weapon racks, sparring circles marked in the dirt. And in the center of it all stood Kale, dressed in simple fighting leathers, a wooden practice sword in his hand. He looked nothing like the regal king from the throne room. Here he was something more primal, a warrior in his element. You're late, he said without looking up. I'm exactly on time. For a king, on time is late. Now he did look at me, and a small smile tugged at his lips. But I'll forgive it. This once. Several other wolves watched from the sidelines. Members of his guard, I assumed. They studied me with varying degrees of curiosity and disdain. An Omega, training with the Alpha King. It must have seemed absurd. Why am I here? I asked. Because you killed an Alpha with claws and rage, but you have no formal training, no discipline. You're a weapon without a wielder. He tossed me a practice sword. I caught it clumsily. That ends today. I don't need to know how to fight. You said yourself I'm bonded. My power comes from emotion, not skill. Your power comes from emotion. Your survival will depend on skill. He gestured for me to enter the sparring circle. Come, show me what you can do. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, that stepping into that circle with him was suicide. But what choice did I have? I entered the ring. Kale circled me slowly, practice sword held loosely. "Attack me!" "What?" "Attack, don't think. Just move." So I did. I lunged forward, sword raised, aiming for his chest. He moved like water, sidestepping effortlessly. His blade cracked against my wrist and my weapon went flying. Again. I retrieved the sword and attacked once more. Same result. Again, and again, and again. Each time, he dismantled my attacks with minimal effort, pointing out flaws in my stance, my grip, my footwork. The guards watched with barely concealed amusement. By the 20th attempt, sweat dripped down my spine and my arms burned with exhaustion. "You're too rigid," Kyle said, not even breathing hard. "You fight like you're trying to prove something, like you're angry at the world." "I am angry at the world. Then channel it. Don't let it control you." He reset his stance. "Once more. But this time close your eyes." "That's insane. Do it." I closed my eyes, sword held before me. The world disappeared. All I could hear was my ragged breathing, the whisper of wind, the distant sounds of the palace. "Now, feel me." "Where am I?" I strained, trying to sense his presence. And then there, a warmth to my left, a displacement of air. I struck. My blade met his with a sharp crack. I opened my eyes to find him grinning. "Better. You're relying on instinct rather than sight. That's where your true power lies." He lowered his weapon. "Enough for today. You did well. I failed 20 times. Yes, but you succeeded once. That's progress." He handed his sword to one of the guards. "Same time tomorrow. And Sarah, wear something you don't mind getting dirty. Next time, we train in wolf form." The thought of shifting in front of him, in front of all these alphas and betas, made my stomach clench, but I simply nodded. The days that followed fell into a brutal rhythm. Training in the mornings, lessons in court politics and pack law in the afternoons, dinners that I was required to attend, sitting at the high table beside Kyle while the court watched and whispered. At first, the attention was suffocating. Every eye on me, every word I spoke analyzed and judged. But gradually, I began to understand the complex dance of palace life. Who held real power? Who simply pretended to? Which alliances were genuine and which were performance? And through it all, Kale was there, teaching, challenging, pushing me to be more than I'd ever imagined an Omega could be. During one particularly tense dinner, a visiting alpha from the Eastern Territories made a comment about Omegas being good for nothing but breeding. The table went silent. Kale's expression darkened. But before he could speak, I set down my wine glass. "Forgive me, Lord Hartwell, but I'm curious. If Omegas are so worthless, why do alphas spend so much energy controlling us? Seems like a waste of effort for something so beneath your notice." Hartwell's face reddened. "Watch your tongue, girl. You may have the king's protection, but nothing." Kale interrupted, his voice soft and deadly. "Miss Ashwood is under my personal protection. Any insult to her is an insult to me. I trust that won't happen again." Hartwell swallowed hard. "Of course not, Your Majesty." Later, as the dinner dissolved and guests dispersed, Kyle walked me back to my chambers. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "Defend me." "Yes, I did. You're part of my court now, under my protection." "That's not just words, Sarah, it's law." We stopped outside my door. In the dim hallway, his silver eyes seemed to glow. "Why are you doing this?" I asked quietly. "Really, the training, the lessons, parading me in front of your court. What's your end game?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Then I told you, I find you fascinating." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now." He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was startlingly gentle. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we hunt." Part 4. The hunted never participated in a royal hunt before. Among Omegas, hunting was a solitary, practical affair. You killed what you needed to survive and nothing more. This was different. The entire court gathered at dawn, dressed in leathers and furs, weapons gleaming. Horses stamped and snorted, eager for the chase. The air buzzed with anticipation. Kale appeared on a massive black stallion, looking every inch the warrior king. He surveyed the assembled crowd, then his gaze found mine. "Lady Ashwood will ride with me." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. It was unusual for a king to share his mount. It spoke of intimacy, trust. I approached his horse and Kale extended a hand. His grip was iron strong as he pulled me up behind him. I had no choice but to wrap my arms around his waist, pressing close to his back. "Hold tight," he murmured. Then he kicked his heels and we were flying. The forest swallowed us whole. Trees blurred past, the thunder of hooves echoing through ancient woods. I'd never moved this fast on horseback. Never felt so gloriously, terrifyingly alive. We rode for over an hour before Kale slowed, raising a fist. The hunt party pulled up behind us. Ahead, in a clearing, a massive stag stood, antlers gleaming like crown jewels. "Beautiful," someone whispered. Kale dismounted and helped me down. Then he handed me a bow. "What?" "The first kill belongs to you." "I'm an Omega, I can't—" "You're a member of my court. You can." His eyes held mine. "Trust yourself, Sarah." I took the bow, hands shaking. Every eye was on me, waiting for me to fail, to prove that Omegas didn't belong in this world. I knocked an arrow, drew back the string. The stag lifted its head, sensing danger. I closed my eyes, felt the wind, the beating of my own heart, the warmth of Kale at my back. I released. The arrow flew true, striking the stag's heart. It fell without a sound. The hunting party erupted in cheers and shouts. I stood frozen, unable to believe what I'd done. Kyle leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. "I told you, you're more than you believe." The celebration that night was lavish. Music and dancing, food and wine flowing freely. I sat beside Kale at the high table, and for the first time since entering this palace, I felt almost comfortable, until Lyra appeared, her expression grave. "Your Majesty, Miss Ashwood, there's been an incident. You're needed in the West Wing immediately." The celebration forgotten, we followed Lyra through twisting corridors. Guards lined the hallway, and the air smelled of blood. In a guest chamber, we found the body, Lord Hartwell, the alpha who'd insulted me at dinner. His throat had been torn out, just like Marcus Blackthorn's. "Goddess," Kale breathed. He turned to me, and I saw the question in his eyes before he asked it. "Sarah, where were you tonight?" Ice flooded my veins. "At the celebration, with you. You know this. And before that? In my chambers, dressing for the feast. Lyra can confirm. Lyra left you alone for approximately 20 minutes to fetch wine," one of the guards interrupted. "That's time enough." The accusation hung in the air like a blade. "You think I did this?" My voice came out hollow. "After everything, you think—" "I think," Kale said carefully, "that we need to determine what happened. Until then, you'll return to your chambers, under guard. So I'm a prisoner again. You're being protected. There's a difference." But as guards escorted me away, I couldn't help feeling that the beautiful cage had just become much, much smaller. Part 5. The Truth Revealed. 2 days passed in isolation. Lyra brought meals but wouldn't meet my eyes. Ghost kept me company, but even the cat seemed subdued. On the 3rd day, Kel finally appeared. He looked haggard, as if he hadn't slept since finding Hartwell's body. "I need to ask you something," he said without preamble, "and I need the truth. Did you kill Lord Hartwell?" "No." He studied me for a long moment. "I believe you." Relief made my knees weak. "Then why am I still locked in here?" "Because whoever did kill him is trying to frame you. And until I figure out who and why, you're safer behind locked doors." He moved to the window, staring out at the gardens. "I've been investigating. Hartwell had enemies, many enemies. But the method of killing, tearing out the throat, that's specific, personal. Like what happened to Marcus. Exactly like that." He turned to face me. "Which means either you have a copycat or someone wants me to believe you're a serial killer. Who would benefit from that?" "That's what I've been trying to determine." He crossed the room and sat heavily in a chair. "Tell me about Marcus. When you killed him, was anyone else there? Did anyone see? I thought back to that night. The rage, the transformation, the blood, I don't know. When my wolf took over, everything went red, but a memory surfaced. There was a scent. Just before I shifted, someone else was there, watching. Kale leaned forward. What kind of scent? Alpha. Definitely alpha, but with something else. Something wrong. Like spoiled meat. His expression darkened. Rot blood. It's a disease that affects alphas who abuse their power, makes them stronger temporarily, but corrupts them from within. Their scent turns foul. He stood abruptly. I need to check the guard rosters. If there's a rot blood alpha in my court. A scream cut through the night. We ran. In the hallway, we found Lyra pressed against the wall, face pale with terror. At her feet lay another body. Another torn throat. But this time I saw the killer. He stood at the end of the corridor, blood dripping from his claws. An alpha I recognized from the guard. His eyes were yellow with sickness, and that rotten smell filled the air. Finally, he snarled. Time to finish what Marcus started. You, I breathed. You were there that night. You watched me kill Marcus. Watched you. I helped you. Weakened him first. Made sure he'd be vulnerable. His laugh was broken glass. Marcus was my brother. My weak, pathetic brother who couldn't even keep one Omega under control. So I took care of him, and I've been taking care of others ever since. Why? Kale demanded, moving in front of me protectively. Because this court has gone soft. Because you, Your Majesty, have forgotten what it means to be alpha, protecting Omegas. Giving them power. Disgusting. He lunged. Kale met him mid-leap, and they went down in a tangle of fur and claws. Both had shifted instantly, two massive wolves tearing at each other. But the rot-blood alpha was strong. Too strong, Kale was losing. I felt my wolf surge forward, felt that familiar pull of rage and love and desperate need to protect. Not this time, I thought. Not him. I shifted. My Omega wolf was smaller than either of theirs, weaker. But I remembered what Kale had taught me. I didn't need to be stronger. I needed to be smarter. I went for the throat. The rot-blood alpha tried to shake me off, but I held on, teeth sinking deep. I thought of Alara, of Finn, of Kale teaching me to fight, to believe in myself, to be more than my designation. The alpha went down and didn't get up. When I shifted back to human form, I was covered in blood. Kale knelt beside me, human again, checking me for injuries. Are you hurt? I'm fine. You? I'll heal. He pulled me into his arms, and for the first time, I let myself collapse against him. That was incredibly brave, and incredibly foolish. You're welcome, he laughed, the sound raw but genuine. Thank you, for saving my life. Now we're even. We stayed like that for a long moment, guards rushing around us, someone calling for healers. But in that small space, it was just us, Sarah, Kale murmured against my hair. When I thought he might hurt you, when I thought I might lose you. He pulled back, cupping my face in his hands. I realized something. This stopped being about fascination weeks ago. My heart hammered against my ribs. What are you saying? I'm saying that somewhere between the throne room and the training yard, between the hunt and this moment, you became essential. Not as a puzzle to solve or a curiosity to study, but as something more. His silver eyes held mine. I'm saying I want you to stay, not as my ward or my prisoner or my student, but as my equal, my partner. Your mate, I whispered. If you'll have me, an arrogant, occasionally cruel alpha king who doesn't deserve you, but will spend every day trying to be worthy of you anyway. Tears burned my eyes. I'm an Omega. You're Sarah Ashwood, the woman who killed to protect her family, who defied a king and lived, who just saved my life without hesitation. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Your designation doesn't define you. Your heart does. I kissed him. It started gentle but quickly became something more, something desperate and profound and inevitable. His hands tangled in my hair and I pressed closer, needing to feel him alive and whole beneath my touch. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, the world had shifted on its axis. Is that a yes? He asked, voice rough. That's a yes. Part 6. The bonding. The next weeks passed in a blur of preparations. Kale announced our bonding ceremony to the court, and the reaction was explosive. Some celebrated, others whispered treason, but no one dared openly oppose the Alpha King's choice. I spent my days learning what it meant to be a queen. Not just in title, but in action. Lyra taught me the intricate dance of court politics, the visiting dignitaries I needed to remember, the alliances to nurture and the threats to watch for. But the nights belonged to Kale and me. We walked through the gardens under moonlight, his hand warm in mine. We sparred in the training yards, and sometimes he let me win. We talked about everything and nothing. His 200 years of loneliness, my childhood dreams, the future we might build together. "Tell me about your brother," Kale said one evening as we sat on my balcony, watching stars emerge. "Finn, you've barely mentioned him since you arrived." Guilt twisted in my chest. I've been so focused on surviving here, I haven't let myself think about him. "He's safe with our aunt in the Southern Territories, away from all this madness. Would you like him here?" At the bonding ceremony, I turned to stare at him. "You'd allow that? Sarah, you're going to be my queen, my mate. Your family is my family now." He squeezed my hand. "Besides, I'd like to meet the brother who helped raise a woman brave enough to defy a king." So Finn came. I barely recognized him when he arrived. At 15, he'd grown tall and lean, with our father's dark hair and our mother's gentle eyes. When he saw me waiting in the courtyard, he dropped his bag and ran. I caught him in a fierce embrace, both of us laughing and crying. "Sarah," he breathed. "I thought, when they said you'd been arrested, I thought I'd lost you too. I'm here. I'm safe." I pulled back to look at him. "And I'm getting married." His eyes widened. "To the Alpha King? The one who gave me a choice when I had none. Who taught me to be strong. Who sees me as more than my designation." I smiled. "You'll like him?" "Finn, I promise." And somehow, impossibly, he did. I watched them meet in the great hall, my brother nervous but determined, Kale extending a hand with genuine warmth. "Your sister tells me you're studying to be a healer," Kale said. Finn nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. I want to help people. A noble calling. We could use more healers in the Northern Court. If you'd like to continue your training here, I'll arrange for the best teachers." Finn looked at me, eyes wide with hope.
I nodded. "I'd like that very much, Your Majesty." "Kale," the Alpha King corrected with a small smile.
"Your family now. No need for formality." Watching them talk, seeing Finn slowly relax and even laugh at something Kale said, I felt something in my chest unlock. For the first time since Alara's death, I had hope. Real hope. Not just for survival, but for a future worth living. The bonding ceremony took place under the full moon, as tradition demanded. The entire court gathered in the sacred grove at the heart of the palace grounds, where ancient trees formed a natural cathedral. I wore white silk that flowed like water, my hair crowned with silver flowers. Lyra had wept when she saw me, and even Ghost had meowed approval. As I walked down the path between assembled wolves, I caught sight of Kale waiting beneath the oldest oak tree. He wore ceremonial leathers, his hair pulled back, and the moonlight turned his silver eyes luminous. He looked like every dream I'd been too afraid to have. The High Priestess began the ceremony, her voice carrying through the grove as she spoke of bonds and destiny, of two souls becoming one under the moon's blessing. "Alpha Kale Northrend," she intoned. "Do you pledge yourself to this woman? To honor her, protect her, cherish her above all others for as long as you both shall live?" "I do." His voice rang clear and certain. "In this life and whatever comes after." The priestess turned to me. "Omega Sarah Ashwood, do you pledge yourself to this man? To honor him, stand beside him, challenge him and support him for as long as you both shall live?" I looked into Kale's eyes and saw my entire future reflected there. "I do, in this life and whatever comes after." "Then by the power vested in me by the moon herself, I declare you bonded. Alpha and Omega. King and Queen. Two souls, one heart." Kyle cupped my face in his hands and kissed me with a tenderness that made my knees weak. The assembled crowd erupted in howls and cheers, but I barely heard them. All I knew was him. All I needed was this moment. When the ceremony ended and the celebration began, Cale pulled me aside into the shadows of the grove. "I have something for you." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Inside lay a ring, silver etched with roses and wolves intertwined. It was my mother's. She was an Omega too, did you know? I shook my head stunned. My father was Alpha King, and she was an Omega from a minor pack. Everyone said it would never work, that she was too weak, too soft for this life. His smile turned sad, but she was the strongest person I've ever known. She ruled beside him with grace and steel, and when she died, a piece of him died with her. He slipped the ring onto my finger. "You remind me of her. That same fire wrapped in gentleness. That same refusal to be anything less than yourself. I wish I could have met her. She would have loved you, almost as much as I do." The words hung between us, precious and terrifying. "You love me?" I whispered. Desperately. Completely. From the moment you looked me in the eye and refused to apologize for being exactly who you are. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, my lips. "I love you, Sarah Ashwood, my queen, my mate, my equal in all things. I love you too." The words felt like freedom, like coming home. "Even when you're arrogant and impossible and make me want to throttle you," he laughed. "Especially then, I hope." We returned to the celebration hand in hand. The night blurred into dancing and laughter, toasts and well wishes. Finn charmed half the court with his earnest questions about healing techniques. Lyra danced with one of the younger guards and looked happier than I'd ever seen her. And through it all, Cale never left my side. As the moon reached its zenith, he leaned close and whispered, "Ready to leave?" "More than ready." We slipped away from the celebration, racing through the palace like children. He led me not to my chambers or his, but to a tower I'd never visited. We climbed spiral stairs until we reached a room at the very top. It was simple, but beautiful. A large bed draped in furs, windows on all sides showing the forest stretching endlessly in every direction, the moon hanging so close it seemed you could reach out and touch it. "I had this prepared for us," Cale said softly. "Away from the court, the politics, the expectations. Here, we're just Cale and Sarah, nothing more, nothing less." I turned to him, and everything I felt must have shown on my face because his expression turned reverent. "Are you sure?" he asked. "We can wait if you need." I kissed him, pouring every ounce of love and need and certainty into it. "I'm sure. I've never been more sure of anything." What followed was tender and fierce and utterly transforming. We came together like two pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. He touched me like I was precious, like I was powerful, and I claimed him with the same devotion, learning the geography of his body, the sounds he made, the way his control finally shattered when I whispered his name. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my skin. "I can feel it," I murmured. "The bond. It's like a golden thread connecting us." "I feel it too. I've been waiting 200 years for this. For you." He tilted my chin up so he could look into my eyes. "Thank you for not giving up. For fighting your way to me, even when the world tried to break you. Thank you for seeing me. For believing I could be more than what everyone said I was." We fell asleep as the moon began its descent, wrapped in each other and the promise of tomorrow. Epilogue, the Queen's Justice. 6 months later, I stood in the throne room once more. But this time I wasn't in chains. I stood beside Cale on a throne of my own, wearing a crown of silver and moonstone. Queen Sarah Northrend, they called me now, the Omega Queen. The one who defied every expectation and changed the laws of an entire kingdom. Because that's exactly what I'd done. My first act as queen was to reform the justice system. Now, Omegas had legal recourse against abusive alphas. Courts were required to hear their cases. Penalties for harming any wolf, regardless of designation, were severe and enforced without exception. My second act was to establish safe houses throughout the territories. Places where Omegas fleeing violence could find shelter and support. Not everyone approved. Some alphas grumbled about Omegas growing too bold, too demanding. But with Kale's support, and my refusal to back down, the changes took root. Today we were hearing a case that had echoes of my own story. An Omega woman named Iris stood before us, accusing a beta of assault. The beta sneered, clearly expecting to be dismissed. He hadn't counted on me. "The evidence is clear," I said, voice carrying through the chamber. "The healer's report confirms Iris's injuries. Multiple witnesses place the accused at the scene. According to the new laws, the penalty is imprisonment and removal from Packlands." "Your Majesty," the beta sputtered. "Surely for one Omega, for one woman," I corrected sharply. "One person who deserves justice as much as any Alpha or Beta or Omega in this kingdom. The law applies to all, or it applies to none." I looked at Kale. He nodded. "Guards," he commanded. "Take him to the dungeons. He'll serve 20 years for his crimes." As they dragged the beta away, I saw Iris's shoulders shake with relief. She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face and mouthed 2 words. "Thank you," I simply nodded. This was why I'd survived. Why I'd fought. Not just for myself or Alara or Finn, but for every Omega who'd ever been told they didn't matter. That their pain was insignificant. Later, as the court session ended and the throne room emptied, Kale pulled me into his arms. "You were magnificent," he murmured against my hair. "I was doing my job. You were changing the world. There's a difference." He pulled back to look at me, and his eyes held that same wonder I'd seen on our bonding night. "I'm so proud of you, Sarah. Of everything you've accomplished. Everything you've become. I couldn't have done any of it without you." "Yes, you could have. You already were. I just gave you the platform." He kissed me softly. "But I'm grateful every day that you let me stand beside you while you set the world on fire." Finn appeared in the doorway, now wearing healer's robes. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you both. She says it's urgent." We followed him to the receiving room, where a young woman waited. She looked exhausted, her clothes travel-worn, but her eyes held fierce determination. "Your Majesties," she said, dropping into a curtsy. "My name is Maya. I've traveled from the Western Territories because I heard about Queen Sarah, about what she's done for Omegas." She swallowed hard. "My sister was killed by an Alpha 3 months ago. I want justice, and I was told that here in the Northern Court I might actually get it." I looked at Kale. He squeezed my hand and nodded. I turned back to Maya and smiled. "Yes, here you will get justice. Tell us everything." As she began her story, I felt that golden thread of the mate bond pulse with warmth, felt Kale's pride and love flowing through it, felt my own purpose crystallizing into something solid and unshakable. This was my life now, my calling, to be the voice for those who'd been silenced, to stand as proof that strength came in many forms, that an Omega could be a queen, a warrior, a force of change, that love and justice could coexist with power. I'd come to this palace in chains, marked for death, believing I had nothing left to lose. I'd found everything instead. A mate who cherished me, a purpose that fulfilled me, a kingdom that was slowly, painfully, beautifully learning to be better. And most importantly, I'd found myself. Not the weak Omega everyone expected, not the broken girl who'd lost her sister, but Sarah Northrend, queen, bonded wolf, survivor, the one who defied the Alpha King and tamed his heart instead of his rage. And this, I knew with absolute certainty, was only the beginning. The end.